Slave rebellions were a response to the harsh treatment and torture inflicted upon the slaves by their masters. Some slaves, instead of simply running away, sought revenge and initiated rebellions. These rebellions occasionally involved the murder of white masters and the takeover of certain territories. However, these uprisings were ultimately suppressed, and the slaveholders let the rebels hung. Today I'm going to share with you one of the stories from the history of colonialism. Let's go through it. The story's name is Rebellion. One of the most well-known slave rebellions in America took place in 1831. Nat Turner, a slave who worked as a carpenter, was driven to madness by the relentless torment by his master. Turner, based in Virginia, gathered a group of fellow slaves, seized their master's guns, went from house to house, and launched a coordinated attack during the night. Turner and his companions managed to kill 58 white individuals. Turner's rebellion, with the participation of almost 60 other slaves, lasted for 48 hours and was marked by intense fighting and bloodshed. Turner remained a fugitive for several weeks, evading expert slave hunters until he was eventually found and killed. Slaveholders typically suppressed the news of such rebellions to prevent the spread and discourage slaves from rising up in other regions. In the late 18th century, a significant rebellion occurred in Haiti, resulting in a relative victory for the slaves. Haiti was under French rule, and the majority of its inhabitants, 5 out of 6, were enslaved. Approximately 500,000 slaves toiled on the sugarcane and coffee plantation in the region. Following their successful revolution and the issuance of the Declaration of the Rights of the Citizens of Man, and the French abolished slavery, denouncing it as a heinous practice. However, the abolition of slavery posed numerous challenges for the French revolutionaries, particularly in terms of how to ensure the continued production of coffee and sugar. Taxes on companies that utilized slave labor to produce their goods were reduced to zero, and customer duties paid by slave sellers were eliminated. As a result, the revenue of the revolutionary government plummeted. After 8 years, disregarding the principles outlined in the Declaration of Human Rights, the French revolutionaries legalized slavery once again in their colonies. The reinstatement of slavery caused deep despair among the Haitian slaves, particularly those who were literate and aware of the developments in France. Among these literate slaves was a man named Toussaint Louverture. He served as the driver of his master's carriage and resided in the city. Slaves living in urban areas had comparatively better conditions than those toiling in the fields, allowing Toussaint to acquire basic education and knowledge about the equal rights of all human beings. In August 1791, Toussaint led a revolt of Haitian slaves. They set fires to farms and homes belonging to white people and attacked any white individuals they could find, often resulting in fatalities. 1,000 white people fled to North America by ship. The French revolutionary government dispatched a massive fleet to the Haitian coast to suppress the slaves. However, Toussaint organized the slaves into disciplined groups, preparing them for a planned war against the invading forces. The war with the French continued for 3 years. Meanwhile, the French and the Spanish, recognizing the vulnerability of the French on the island of Haiti, attempted to seize it. Yet the organized Black Army led by Toussaint repelled them. Ultimately, the French forces retreated from Haiti and the black population celebrated their victory. Toussaint Louverture, a former slave and coachman, drafted the Haitian Constitution and declared Haiti's independence from France. When Napoleon, the arrogant French dictator, assumed power, he was riled by Toussaint's actions. In 1802, he dispatched a large army to the island with the aim of reconquering Haiti. American President Thomas Jefferson also conveyed a message to France, expressing America's willingness to support France in retaking Haiti. The Americans feared that the success of the Haitian slaves would inspire revolts among their own enslaved population. Napoleon's forces clashed with the well-led Black Army commanded by Toussaint. The French were caught off guard by the determined resistance and organized warfare of the former slaves. The harsh conditions they endured in the fields and the suffering they endured during slavery had instilled in them resilience and fortitude to endure hardships. They fought with exceptional strength and unwavering determination, refusing to return to the oppressive life they had escaped. The black soldiers demonstrated remarkable tenacity and executed their war plans with discipline, delivering heavy blows to the French army. These were the blows that the French forces had never experienced in the European wars. The conflicts lasted for 8 months, resulting in a significant loss of life on both sides. Additionally, yellow fever spread among both armies. In an attempt to gain an advantage, the French commander resorted to trickery. He engaged in secret negotiations with Toussaint's commanders and signed separate agreements with each of them. Left isolated, Toussaint went abroad the French commander's ship to discuss peace negotiations, but was swiftly arrested. He was taken to France, where he died a few months later while in prison. In the face of Napoleon's attempt to bring back slavery in Haiti, the black population fought back. Toussaint was no longer among them, but the freed slaves refused to go back to being enslaved. In 1804, Jean-Jacques Dessalines took charge, kicked out the colonial forces, and declared Haiti independent. Although Dessalines was killed 2 years later, a new government formed in southern Haiti in 1838. Realizing they couldn't control Haiti anymore, the French government suggested paying a massive sum of 90 million gold coins as compensation for the loss from ending slavery. In today's terms, that's over $32 billion. Even after Haiti got its independence recognized, it took a whopping 110 years for the Haitian government to finally pay off this huge amount as interest. Sadly, this payment turned Haiti into a poor and weak country, a heavy cost for gaining freedom. Alright, this was one of the short-shocking stories from the history of colonialism, the Manhunt. I hope you have already enjoyed this great book, so click the link in the description and watch the both other videos in the 2 sides.